I want you to know that now my boyfriend, when, like, if I'm wearing a really cool pair of pants, like high-waisted pants, he's like, nice Man Repellers.
Oh, nice. How does Man Repeller become Goop approved?
If my boyfriend is referring to my clothes as Man Repeller approved, I think.
I'll take that. We are largely here today because I want to talk a little bit about your perfume launch, Edition
01 Winter. We're being completely transparent about what's in it, which for us is really important because the word fragrance, companies can hide like thousands of ingredients and keep it as a proprietary secret. But unfortunately, it's come to mean that basically 99% of conventional fragrances, and also if you see fragrance in home cleaning products or deodorant or anything, it means that they can hide, you know, endocrine disrupting chemicals and carcinogens, and they can put anything they want.
But would you feel the difference on your body?
I think it depends on the individual person. Right. I mean, I notice in my life that the cleaner that I eat and the cleaner that my personal care products are, the better that I feel. But I do think that when you make an effort towards cleaning up your personal care routine and what you're using in your home, it does make a difference.
Yeah. Do you drink a lot?
Yes, I do.
But you have such good skin.
Because of my products, I swear by them. I'm not kidding.
Wait, this is such great news. You can drink a lot and still look like Gwyneth Paltrow.
I try to eat organic food when I can and eat local food when I can and eat, you know, as little processed food as possible. But sometimes you need a bag of Doritos and a beer in an airport or whatever, you know? So we have to be modern and easy on ourselves as well.
So when you launched Goop, was this always part of the plan?
It really started because my friends always called me to say, like, where should I eat here?
Yeah.
I'm going on this trip. Where am I going? Where am I staying? Where do I buy a vintage poster? Like anything. And I was like, I'm just going to put it all online so they can go online. And then I decided to do a newsletter. And it was this tiny homespun thing. And the response, especially that New York Times piece, I was like, why is there a 4 or 6 page article like dissecting what I'm doing and being so critical? It was actually fascinating, like from a gender and sociological standpoint. It was bizarre.
But how do you learn to like mute that noise and keep going?
I think you have to understand innately like who you are, why you're here, what you're here to do, and stay so true to your course and your vision that all of that other stuff just becomes noise. And I actually really like criticism when it's constructive and helpful, and I love input. But when somebody's coming to something with such a gender bias or with a bunch of projections of their own shit onto you, it's like, well, there's no, you know, it just doesn't help me, so I don't engage in it, I don't read it, I don't. And I just stay really, really true to my vision. It's like I see a bullseye way off in the future, and I'm just like going for it.
Do you feel like some of the criticism that you get is, well, I don't know if the question is, do you feel like it's warranted, but how, if ever, do you respond to it?
We are trying specifically to ask questions, move culture forward, introduce topics, and we press buttons, and we do it. Sometimes we do it intentionally. I mean, the conscious uncoupling piece was the perfect example of that because I wanted to tell the story from us, and I didn't want to, you know, give a quote to a magazine or something to announce it. And I wanted to sort of say, hey, we have learned a really amazing way of doing this, and our children are kind of unscathed thus far from that. I'm sure we're scathing them in other ways. And the reaction was so bananas. It's just like a bunch of projection where it's like if people feel, you know, in some way that they're being given information that's illuminating something that, you know, and especially if it makes them feel like they did it wrong, which is never the intent, or that there's a better way to do something, I think people get mad about that and like, fuck you, don't tell me, like you have a better way of doing something, and fair enough. Right. But we just really wanted to say, hey, if anyone's interested, this is working for us. And then you see 2 years later, you know, it's become not something that people like joke about, or they're like, wow, this actually works. And you see other people doing it and talking about it, and you see it like being written about now in a much different way. So So for me, that arc is very important to keep in mind always, especially at the beginning.
And I bet you're
It's
starting to have
unbelievable.
like very thoughtful or meditated conversations with your daughter, because 12 is getting older.
Oh my gosh.
How are you teaching her to be a woman?
I think that work ethic is everything. So I think she sees work ethic, and so she understands that. And you know, it's interesting. I feel like they're born, they're so who they are, and by about the time they're like 3 years old, you're sort of done in this weird way. Like they really are who they are, and then they go through all of these changes and ups and downs. But they're kind of like, you know, pretty early. I think that the more conscious you are about like what kind of person do I want to put into the world, you know, when they go to college, and the more you can keep that in your mind, like in those tough moments, that's been really beneficial for me.
When you were pregnant, were you a really clean eater also?
Not at all. I went from being completely macrobiotic. I got pregnant with my daughter, and if I smelled brown rice or salmon or vegetables, I threw up.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could eat was grilled Swiss cheese sandwiches, French fries, Jamocha almond fudge ice cream from Baskin-Robbins, yogurt, and apples.
What advice do you have for a woman who is trying to find her place in the world? That's part one. Number two, maybe launch a business.
Well, I think we're living in such a fascinating time to be a woman, and I certainly don't think that our mothers felt all of this permission to be all of these things and be them all at the same time. And you know, I think I always say, like, I feel that there's a new archetype being created for a woman, which is that you can be incredibly intelligent and sexual and maternal, and you know, we're far more complex, and we're allowed to be. We've always been that complex, but now we're allowed to be. We have the license to. And I see it in my daughter and her friends in that generation. They are so integrated with who they are, and they have this incredible strength and power, and they're not worrying about the same things in 7th grade that I was worrying about.
Right.
And I think that's a byproduct of how far our culture is coming. I think we still have a long way to go in terms of women, and but I think, you know, just be you. Just be the most integrated version of yourself possible, and you're kind of fine. Like, I wish I hadn't learned that past 40. You know, I wish I had known that when I was 12 or 26 or whatever. But I had no concept. I was constantly trying to be what I thought I was supposed to be, and trying to fulfill somebody else's idea of who I was supposed to be. And I think it's the same for starting a business. It's like a lot of it is just self-belief, you know? I think it's even for me with Goop, it took me a long time, as I was saying, to really decide to jump off the cliff, because I knew I was gonna take a world of shit, and you know, I was like, why? I have a perfectly good day job. Like, why am I walking away from this? Okay, well, if I do the dirt cleanse, Man Repeller is to take the shit for it, not Goop.com.